It's really a great moment to have this discussion, to focus on mutual integration of climate change and biodiversity agendas, which is really, I think, also at the international level taking place at this moment. I'll focus a bit on what we do internally as EU, but also externally. And I think if you look at the world around us, countries in Europe and around the world are indeed increasingly experiencing the negative effects of climate change. If you look at rainfall patterns, heat waves, wildfires, very close to here, the drought in the north of Italy, which is also a risk for food security going forward. And at the same time, we see biodiversity loss and ecosystem degradation, which is really an interlinked challenge and a threat to our human well-being. And about 1 million animal and plant species are currently at risk of extinction. So we need to work together globally, regionally, and locally to have responses to tackle this dual crisis. Laudato Si is obviously a central theme of today, or a guide for many of us. And there Pope Francis already called on everyone around the world to take swift and unified global action. And I think this call in 2015 really contributed to the international discourse on climate policies and sustainable development objectives. And strengthened the international negotiation climate at the time and inspired political cooperation. Just think of the Sustainable Development Goals and the Climate Change Conference in Paris in 2015 that were agreed. So today, I think this is for me a great opportunity to reiterate the EU's commitment to protect biodiversity and address climate change. As EU, we uphold some of the highest environmental standards in the world, which allow to safeguard the environment, preserve Europe's natural resources, and promote the health and wellness of its citizens. Such environmental standards constitute the essential components of sustainable development and really serve as a foundation for our internal and external policy. As EU, we are committed to cooperating with partners around the world through diplomatic and development initiatives. We are committed to implement the Paris Agreement, keep global warming to 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels, assist the most vulnerable in adapting to the effects of climate change, and boost global climate finance. You already mentioned the loss and damage fund that was agreed to in Sharm el-Sheikh, where I think the EU played an important role in getting that agreed to. So in accordance with the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda, the EU will also continue to support equitable transitions towards resilient economies and communities that are climate neutral. Inward-looking, the European Green Deal provides a framework for the EU to achieve these targets by combining emissions reductions with environmental protection measures and placing social balance and employment also at the center of that transition. The Green Deal is basically our roadmap for achieving carbon neutrality by 2050, as well as a way to recover from the COVID pandemic in a sustainable and inclusive manner. We have already set a target earlier than 2050, which is the aim to reach a 55% emission by 2030, which is a halfway step towards climate neutrality. And in June 2021, the Council adopted the EU climate law, which legally binds EU member states to reach both this 2030 and 2050 climate objectives. If you look at, then we also have as part of this Green Deal, the EU biodiversity strategy for 2030, which for 2030 aims to put Europe's biodiversity on a path to recovery. for the benefit of people, climate, and planet. And this envisages the establishment of larger EU-wide network on protected areas on land, at sea, a nature restoration plan, measures for transformative change, and for tackling the biodiversity challenge globally. The establishment of this biodiversity strategy as a core element of this European Green Deal, side by side to its climate targets, really demonstrates the integrated approach that the EU employs in this. And I mentioned I work a lot on food and agriculture as well. I think that's really where you see this integration also, to be able to make sure that we have enough food, nutritious food for future generations. We need to deal with climate change, agriculture, both mitigating measures to reduce the emissions of agriculture, but also adapt agriculture to be more resilient to climate change. And on biodiversity, the importance of soils, of pollinators, we see a reduction of pollinators around the world. Really very important going forward to work on that. And let me just say that we don't only work on this inside the EU. I mentioned some of our very firm targets inside the EU, but we work in the multilateral forum with partner countries around the world on reaching these goals in very practical programs related to forest management, food systems, renewable energy as well. So, and let me underline the importance of science and innovation here. We really invest in that as well. Finally, I think this is really a great opportunity to also think about our own contributions and personal initiatives and what, as I said, we may work more at the global level or at the EU level, but I think it's good to think also at more at community level and your personal commitment. And I think the representatives here from different regions and countries can say much more about that personal commitment. But I do feel that this is an excellent opportunity to all that we ourselves think about that. We spoke about the plastic. At the beginning, there is a plastic initiative globally, but I think there's things you can do on a personal level to help in fighting plastic pollution, and really maybe end with that we adopt this more holistic approach to climate change, to biodiversity loss, and to have this. I'm happy that we can have this conversation here today for this for our joint action, and looking forward to the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.